Did you know that a single woman brought shame and vengeance upon Cyrus the Great himself? In the heart of ancient Central Asia, where winds swept across endless steppes and the Pamir and Hindu Kush mountain ranges cut through the sky, a female warrior wrote her name in blood in the annals of history. This is the story of Tamiris, queen of the Massagetae, and her terrible revenge on the Persian king Cyrus the Great. To understand how this legendary massacre came about, we must first learn who Cyrus was. In the 6th century BC, when Rome was still a tiny community and democracy was just emerging in Athens, a colossal Persian king rose to power in the east. The Persian Empire, ruled by Cyrus II, who later became known as Cyrus the Great, stretched from the shores of the Mediterranean Sea to the Hindu Kush, from the Caucasus to the Persian Gulf. Never before had humanity seen such power concentrated in the hands of a single ruler. But Cyrus was not just a conqueror. He rethought the very principle of governance. Unlike bloodthirsty tyrants who went to extremes for the sake of destruction, he allowed the conquered peoples to retain their languages, beliefs, and local leaders. When he took Babylon, the inhabitants were not slaughtered. He released the Jewish captives and gave them the right to return to their homeland. Kierov's famous Berestian Charter, or the so-called Cylinder of Cyrus, printed on clay, is still considered by many to be the world's first human rights document. But don't be fooled. His altruism was a calculated strategy. Respect for customs ensured peace in the far corners of the empire, while the image of a liberator concealed boundless ambitions. Each new conquest fueled his thirst for expansion. And in 530 BC, having conquered Lydia, Media, Babylon, and other states, Cyrus turned his gaze north, beyond the Syr Darya river, where nomadic tribes of Massagetae grazed on the endless plains of Central Asia. The Massagetae were truly children of the steppe. Without fortresses or city walls, their only roof was the sky, and their only border was as far as the eye could see. They were accustomed to the harshness of nature, skilled at shooting arrows from horseback and traversing steep ridges on their trusty horses. They were ruled by the widow of the ruler, Queen Tamiris, whose real name was transformed into Tamiris by Greek historians, but in her native language, she was Tomiris. According to Herodotus, after her husband's death, she did not waste away in mourning, but took command of the army and the people. She was not merely a regent for her young son or a shadow of her deceased husband. She gave orders herself and led the attack in the front ranks. When a Persian embassy arrived at her tents, Cyrus, under the guise of friendly intentions, offered Tomyris a union of two classes. If she married him, she would supposedly receive the throne, and the Massagetae would become part of the Persian Empire without bloodshed. In reality, however, this was a ruse. By subjugating a foreign people without firing a single shot, Cyrus expanded his dominions. But Tamiris immediately saw through the true meaning of the good news. According to one legend, she sent the king a letter with the following inscription: "Give up your foolish plan, for you do not know what it will bring you. Rule your empire and do not meddle in the affairs of my land." The refusal sounded like an insult. The conqueror of cities could not tolerate the refusal of a barbarian queen. Cyrus summoned all his generals to Susa and ordered them to raise an army of thousands, promising to storm the Massagetae camps. His first satrap, Harpagus and Croesus, the former king of Lydia, who had now become an advisor to the Persian king, prepared a fleet of pontoon bridges across the Syr Darya. Cyrus ordered a fortified camp to be set up on the left bank, rich in supplies and wine, a drink ancient and beloved in Persia, but completely foreign to the tribes of the north. When the army crossed the river, the Persians pretended to retreat, hoping that the Massagetae, seeing the easily fortified camp with unguarded warehouses, would rush to the spoils. And the first attack played into the hands of the enemies. several hundred Scythian warriors gathered at the camp, grabbed the wine chests, and began to feast to the sound of trumpets and tambourines. Drunken laughter drowned out the rumble of the approaching infantry, and the soldiers relaxed as they had never done before in their lives. But the Massagetae dealt their heaviest blow not then, but at dawn, when the feast had just ended. Queen Tamiris, waiting for the right moment, divided her horsemen into patrol groups, and they surrounded the drunken camp. Severed heads flew capriciously in the wind, horses panicked and rushed between the tents, and the remnants of the Persian army fled back to the river, losing blood and weapons. According to Herodotus, up to 300,000 Persians died that night, and the pontoon bridges were destroyed. But the most painful episode of revenge came later. The queen found the body of Cyrus the Great. Burning resentment got the better of her. Historians wrote that she ordered his head to be cut off and dipped in a barrel of blood so that he would drown forever in his own thirst for power. This act left no doubt. The East remembered that the Massagetae were not to be trifled with. Only later, centuries later, did this event become shrouded in legend in the tales of Greek and Roman authors. But the essence remained the same. One proud woman did not allow the freedom of her people to be extinguished and punished the one who considered himself invincible. Since then, the name of Tomyris has sounded like a warning to all conquerors. Respect the gaze of a nomad who values not gold and glory, but the sky above his head and freedom until his last breath. Can a single glass of wine shame the greatest conqueror of all time? A detachment of Massagetae under the command of Spargapis, son of Queen Tamiris, stumbled upon an abandoned Persian camp, and unaware of the treachery, took the abandoned wineskins as spoils. In the midnight darkness, intoxicated by the wine, the horsemen began to celebrate. But as soon as the wine took effect, Cyrus's blow fell upon the drunken nomads. The Massagetae, deprived of their fighting ability, were easily defeated. Many fell, and Sparagus himself was taken prisoner. Waking from his intoxication and realizing his own naivety, he begged bitterly to be released from his chains, and having gained his freedom at the price of his honor, he took his own life in a moment of despair. When Tomiris learned of her son's death, a bolt of lightning struck her heart, but grief only strengthened her resolve. Cold and calculating, she sent a messenger to Cyrus with an ultimatum. The landscape of the steppes is not your prey, foreigner. Do not boast of a victory won by wine rather than honest combat. Leave my lands. Forgive the treacherous capture of a third of my army, and I will spare you. If you refuse, I swear by the sun, Lord of the Massagetae, I will quench your thirst with blood. But Cyrus, the same man who conquered Media and Lydia and stormed Babylon, intoxicated not by wine but by his own legend, dismissed the threat. He considered the battle with the savage tribe to be just another step toward immortal glory. Hearing the queen's threats, Tomyris rallied all the Massagetae under her banner. Skilled in the art of steppe warfare, these mounted archers, capable of riding day and night without rest and hitting their targets from hundreds of paces away, lined up against the heavily armed Persian infantry and war chariots. In the open plain where there were no walls or ramparts, Cyrus's palace tactics, designed for besieging cities, proved useless. The Massagetae archers struck quickly and withdrew rapidly, inflaming the Persian heavy infantry who tried to chase them. Cyrus himself fought no less fiercely, leading personal attacks and urging his guards not to retreat. But even the greatest commander could not overcome the combination of hostile terrain, superior mobile tactics, and a mother's fury demanding revenge for her son. At the decisive moment, the battle subsided, and the great king fell on the plain near the river Yaksartes. But it was not Cyrus' death that brought him true immortal glory, but Tomyris's actions after the battle. According to Herodotus, when the queen's warriors found him among the fallen, she ordered them to cut off his head and bring it to her. Then she ordered that a wineskin be filled with the blood of the people, and grabbing the severed head by the hair, dipped it into the crimson darkness, exclaiming, "I am alive and have surpassed you in battle, but I avenge my son, who was taken from me by deceit." This gesture, as gruesome as it was symbolic, was meant to show the whole world that even the immortal ambitions of the self-proclaimed Queen of the World were doomed to destruction. The conqueror, who had shed so much foreign blood, died in his own blood, and his name was repeated many times over the centuries in this image. But how true is this legend? The first and main version has come down to us from the work of Herodotus, written approximately 75 years later, based on oral accounts. Persian cuneiform inscriptions claim that Cyrus' body was returned and buried in Massagetae, which partly contradicts the story of the lavish execution. Modern historians and archaeologists still argue whether the Greeks exaggerated the feat of the savage Massagetae, and whether the story of the vengeful queen turned into a moralistic myth about the perniciousness of pride. But it is precisely this story of a mother consumed by grief and the fall of a great man that has remained etched in the memory of mankind for a long time. The head of a mighty conqueror, immersed in a vessel of blood. Could such a sight have been ignored by future generations? Archaeological excavations confirm that the Massagetae really existed as a powerful union of nomadic tribes in the vast expanses of Central Asia, between the Aral and Caspian Seas, and their name is not limited to mentions by Herodotus. The ancient Roman historian Justin describes Queen Tamiris not as a woman who defends freedom unarmed, but as an authoritative ruler who takes revenge beyond the borders of her kingdom. According to Justin, she did not simply fight for honor, but paid dearly for the Persians' claims to her lands. When Cyrus the Great invaded the southern Massagetae steppes, his army encountered the surprising mobility and archery skills of the horse archers. The conqueror, accustomed to sedentary kingdoms, did not expect that nomads would lead him to his doom. In 1628 BC, according to Greek calculations, a decisive battle broke out between the Persians and the Massagetae on the banks of the Syr Darya. It was there, according to ancient authors, that Cyrus fell, and his death shook the entire world at that time. The consequences were dramatic. His son Cambyses II ascended the throne, inheriting a vast empire but lacking his father's wisdom. Obsessed with the idea of conquering Egypt, a land already conquered by his father, Cambyses spoke only of distant campaigns and ignored the growing discontent within the country. After his death, a protracted struggle between satraps broke out, and it was only when Darius I came to power that the Persian state gained stability. It was he who introduced the system of satrapies, built new roads and canals, thanks to which the empire expanded beyond its former borders. What happened to Tomyris after her great revenge? Historical sources are silent about her fate. After all, the chronicles of antiquity primarily recorded the names of male kings, while female heroes were forgotten. According to one legend, she ruled for many years, entering into dynastic marriages with other tribes and opening trade routes between the Massagetae and Persia. According to another, the foundations of her power were shaken by neighboring tribes, and she died in new clashes. But one thing is certain. After her triumph, no one dared to disturb the nomads east of the river. Tomiris' victory became a symbol that strength of spirit and military strategy are sometimes stronger than any state apparatus. In an era when women were not supposed to rule at all, a barbarian queen surpassed the most powerful ruler of her time in intelligence and courage. The battle between the Massagetae and the Persians was not just a conflict between two armies, but an eternal drama of the struggle between sedentary civilizations and nomadic, freedom-loving tribes. The Persian Empire, with its cities and irrigation systems, was considered a model of civilization, while Tomiris Massagetae were the embodiment of barbarism. But it was the barbarians who won, repeating this story later in the campaigns of the Huns against Rome and the Mongols in China. The image of Cyrus's head floating in blood has been captured by many authors as one of the most gruesome metaphors of antiquity, a reminder that nothing can stop revenge and that unbridled thirst for power, sooner or later, turns into bloody defeat. Tamiris did not simply defeat Cyrus. She turned his death into a vivid message to future rulers. Beware of your own greed. When the names of Alexander, Caesar, or Genghis Khan come to mind, we rarely remember the queen of the Massagetae, but her victory over Cyrus deserves to be retold again and again, not only as an important milestone in history, but also as proof that even the most established ideas about power can be overturned. In those steppes where the tents of the Massagetae once roamed, freedom still blows. There are no monuments to Tamiris, no cities bearing her name, no dynasty descended from her, but the wind still carries her legend across the boundless expanses. What could be more terrifying than revenge turned into a cruel lesson for the whole world? Nevertheless, the story of Queen Tamiris, who, after the death of her tribesmen at the hands of the Persian ruler Cyrus the Great, took revenge on him in the most painful way possible, by plunging his severed head into a vessel filled with her own blood, echoes through the centuries, reminding us of the limits of power and the terrible price of unbridled ambition. Even after 2,500 years, this episode remains a symbol of how the pursuit of unlimited domination can turn into bloody self-destruction. The bloody cup in which Cyrus sought greatness became the final triumph of one whose strength of spirit surpassed the dreams of the most powerful conqueror of his time,